And in terms of the musical ideas, then does it allow you to try different things than you would try when you perform live?
Yeah. That's different because you can easily just, fiddle around with stuff and just bring out, new loops and a completely different song. Whereas in the live show, the fun is that you have the existing song and you can reinterpret the song. So we have an arrangement of a certain song, but within this arrangement, we can work a lot. We can take it up and down and, take instruments out, tease the people, or push it a lot, give a lot of energy. So that's the interpretation of the music.
Well, this is a question I ask a lot of producers, and as you say, your songs continually evolve over the years. Is it difficult then, when you create a song for an album or for a remix or anything, to know when you're finished with the song?
No, it's not so easy, to be honest. You could see with the last album, it took us ages to finish the album, and it was a long process because the more you have, the more along the career is, the more problems you have to find something interesting for yourself again. In the beginning, everything was new and everything was exciting, and nowadays it's a little bit harder to satisfy yourself, to find the right beats, the right melodies, the right mix of that what you want to hear. And it's sometimes because we came from this angle that people told us what to do when we produced music for other people. They told us when it's finished. They said, okay, this is great now. And then we said, okay, it's great. But nowadays we are our own judges, so that's much more difficult to finish that. That's why a lot of bands have producers, but we produce ourselves. So it's sometimes really tricky to say, okay, which version of these 50 versions we have from that song, which one is the best now? So we ask a lot of people, we ask friends like DJs, and we ask, what do you think? Because sometimes you really lose it, and you have to ask other people to find back on the road again.
And in that sense then, when you're working on an album, does it happen that all the songs are specifically written in a certain period for that album, or do you also revisit songs that you maybe had ideas for years ago?
Yeah, of course, a lot. The Loving song from the new album is, I think it was made for the album before, but we couldn't find the right version at that time. So we reworked it, and I think we did another 60 versions of it for this album.
But half a year, I think.
But finally we found a version that we really like, and we can see it was worth the effort, because every night we play it, it's one of my highlights of the show nowadays. And we have really great reactions on it. That's cool.
In that particular song, do you know what made the difference between now and those years ago?
There were so many versions. I remember that on the first version, actually, there was a vocal from myself on it, and then we threw this out, and then I think a big difference made this vocal sample we found finally. This "Say Are You Happy" from what was the artist called?
It's Club Lonely from
Lil Kim? No,
Lil Louis.
Lil Louis, exactly, the French Kiss guy. And we found the sample, and that made a big difference. That it gave the whole song a new style, a new way, and we took some elements from the original and just made it a little bit cooler. I think in the version we had for the last album was a little bit too aggressive for the song.
Well, you also mentioned that it becomes, as your career goes on, it becomes more difficult to inspire yourself and to find. And over the last decade or even more, dance music, house music, electronic music has really exploded, and has been a lot more artists. So is it now more difficult than back then to distinguish yourself in terms of the music?
Yeah, I don't think it depends so much on what happens around you. Also, at the moment, it's not so much that we look what else is out there and try to be different. It doesn't depend on them. It has to come out of yourself. And of course, when you start, you can try out anything you want. It's a white piece of paper. Now, as you go along, obviously, you need something new, and you want to go on as an artist. You don't want to repeat yourself, but at the same time, you want to kind of, keep your identity, because we're very proud of the fact that we can do mostly instrumental music, which is very recognizable. You know, normally when you have a singer in a band, it's very easy. You will always recognize the singer. But as an instrumental act, you have to find the language in the music. And this is very difficult if you at the same time want to move forward. And that's what took a long time. So it's not so much the inspiration per se. There's always a lot of ideas. It's just, you know, how to put them in the right context and so that it makes sense on an album, on an album length. That's the tricky part. But if it was so easy, anybody could do it. So it has to be a little bit difficult, and it has to be painful in a way. If it was too easy, it wouldn't feel right, I guess.
Well, you mentioned painful. Was it then? Is it true that because of what you just mentioned, that or maybe because of that the album Eve at one point wasn't going to be made? That you thought about maybe not finishing it?
Yeah, and that's just because of the fact that it was difficult or barely impossible for us to find the right way. We almost came to this point, and then it was by coincidence. And also you have to say that the way we worked on albums for the last 2 or even 3 albums was always we did a lot in the laptops on the road while we were traveling. And that was great for a long time, because there's great things you can do nowadays. And, you know, we would sit down here in a backstage before a show, sit down and work on something, or do it in a hotel room. But this story was told. It wasn't fascinating for us anymore. And then by coincidence, Walter found this studio outside of Manchester in England, which seemed to be just perfect for us, because it had all kinds of instruments, acoustic, electronic instruments, everything. Crazy stuff piled up to the ceiling. And there's also a crazy guy who owns the studio. And we thought, yes, that's the perfect thing. Let's go there and just go mental with the equipment and just have fun. And we recorded for quite a while and just took all this stuff home with us. And then we found the right way, or the actual production inspiration, to finish the music. And by coincidence, the studio was called Eve.
But how did you find this place in Manchester? Because it's
in a magazine, in a production magazine.
Sound? No, yeah. Future Music. I don't remember the name.
Oh, no.
It was interesting. There were a few pages about the studio, and it looked interesting. It looked different than all the other studios.
And this, I don't know if this is correct, but maybe a separation from your normal process was something you needed.
Break, new vision, new aspect, the new way to look at things. Exactly that. Yeah, it's like in a relationship sometimes with a woman. So you just need to find yourself again.
So what did you find there then? What did you discover? You mentioned
eternal love.
But you mentioned those instruments.
There were so many possibilities and so many new things we could try out. It's just like in a kindergarten, right? You find all these things to play around with, and we just stayed in this house, and that made us play like a band together again. It's different than sitting on a computer and just move little things back and forth. So I think that made the difference, to play the instruments again. Record drums and play keyboards and have all these little crazy stuff he brought with him from China or whatever, like gongs and organs and stuff.
Okay, final question. Are you going to play a Dutch festival this summer?
Oh, good question. I think we do.
Is it? I'm not even sure. It's I know we go to America. Yes, for sure. Probably, let's say it's not announced yet, so we can't say it.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right.